All right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
Well, for years now, conservatives and a few dissonant voices on the left have understood that Russiagate was a cynical attempt by the U.S. intelligence community and the establishment to destroy any threat to their power. We got exact proof positive of that supposition this Friday, when the Washington Post reported that the FBI had told the Sanders campaign approximately a month ago that Russia had developed a, quote, preference for his campaign online. Let's take some time just to consider how ridiculous this entire thing is. Literally the same day the Post reports that the Russians had a preference for the campaign, the New York Times said the intelligence community also briefed lawmakers that Russia had developed a preference for the Trump campaign in 2020. So, which is it? Can two contenders for the president of the United States both be Russian assets? Well, if you ask MSNBC, the answer is actually yes. Let me show you how Pod Save America and former Obama staffer Dan Pfeiffer spun it Sunday morning.
It is, and I think we should be very clear that when we say Russia is helping Bernie Sanders,
what does that mean? Yes.
They are not trying to help Bernie Sanders be president. They are trying to give Trump the opponent that Trump wants. They helped Bernie Sanders in 2016 to divide the Democratic Party.
James Carville also offered us another explanation after Sanders' win in the Nevada caucuses.
The happiest person right now, it's about 1:15 Moscow time. This thing is going very well for Vladimir Putin. I promise you. He's probably staying up watching us right now. How you doing, Vlad?
That's absolutely right. And James, there's reporting that that's exactly what the intelligence agencies think is going on. I mean, the Sanders campaign was briefed that Putin is helping him or plans to help him in the primary. Amazing.
And I don't think Sanders wants Putin to help. The only reason, why would Vladimir Putin be helping Bernie Sanders? Of course, because he wants Donald Trump to win. I mean, it's a straight line. And I don't think that the Sanders campaign in any way is collusion or collaboration. I think they don't like this story. But the story is a fact. And the reason that the story is a fact is Putin is doing everything that he can to help Trump, including trying to get Bernie Sanders the Democratic nomination.
So as Pfeiffer and Carville explain, the Russians want to give Trump the opponent he wants, which is Bernie. So that's how it all works. And that would make sense if Trump himself had not already admitted on tape that he didn't want Hillary to pick Bernie Sanders as his vice president. And you could take a look at the latest head-to-head polling that we'll talk about later in this show that shows that Sanders is the most robust Democratic nominee against Trump heading into the general election. Let me posit this instead. Both stories are complete BS. They're attempts by the intelligence community to influence the same general election. They want to destroy the candidacy of Sanders because he represents an existential threat to the way they do business. They want to destroy Trump's candidacy because he also represents an existential threat to the way they do business. And it really is hilarious how similar the two stories read when you put them side by side. In both, they include vague information about a briefing. They give you the top-line takeaway. Russia has developed a preference for the candidate. And then it literally doesn't include any information whatsoever as to what Russia is actually doing to swing the election. What hasn't stopped pundits from repeating this clear national security state garbage word for word, thereby squaring the circle? Check this out from CNN's Asha Rangappa, one of the worst Russiagate grifters of the last few years. She says you must understand that the Russians have chosen Bernie as their insurance policy to cover their bases no matter wins, and that as such, if he were to win, he would have to order an investigation into it the day he becomes president, and that has to live up to her expectations. This is how the national security state works. They run the table. They have their former staffers and allies on cable news set the terms of a debate. Then they get to decide how exactly you should handle your administration's response if you become president. If you don't live up to it, well, sorry, you are now a Russian asset. I will give Sanders credit. He took a page out of the Trump book and let reporters who asked him about the story know exactly what he thought of it, and the outlet that reported it, the Washington Post. Let's take a listen.
Well, I'll let you guess about one day before the Nevada caucus. Why do you think it came out? Was the Washington Post? Good friends.
The good news is we're headed for the promised land, campaign in which the intelligence community and the media both hate the major candidates for president. I can't think of an outcome that I've wanted more to expose how utterly powerless that they really are and who they have to answer to. And you saw that, Crystal.
That Bernie response is so satisfying.
Response was hilarious. Yeah, it was great. It was like, oh, Washington Post, good friend.
Good friend.
That is the thing about the Post and the Times, and we've watched the Times do this now for 3 years. They just repeat whatever these FBI agents or whomever call them up and want them to print. They'll print it, no problem.
Right.
No real attribution, no description of the briefing. What does preference even mean? Do they have somebody on tape? Is somebody buying $1 million worth of Facebook ads again?
Right. They never say.
It's crap.
They never say.
And it's the same thing with Sanders. A month ago, he gets a briefing, a classified briefing, by the way. People were like, why didn't Bernie come out and condemn it? It's like, well, it was classified, top secret. You're probably not supposed to acknowledge it.
And if he did, then they'd be doing the other thing. Oh, he's compromising our national security. Exactly. How could he? Blah, blah, blah.
The whole thing is ridiculous. And look, it's funny because it's not like the Trump people are Trump himself has been tweeting. He's like, I didn't even hear about this. So like, where did this information materialize from? Where did it come from?
Yeah.
Deep within the bureaucracy, leaking selectively on the president and the person who is most likely to succeed him.
Yeah.
I mean, you're out of your mind.
Yeah. I mean, let's be very clear here. There is direct election interference going on, and it is coming from the national security state who wants to hobble the candidates who are antithetical to their interests. That is like clear as day what's going on here. I mean, you have another storyline this morning where apparently a national security intelligence official was way out over their skis in terms of a briefing that they gave to Congress about, saying that Putin had a preference for Trump and was trying to work to help him win the election, when actually the intelligence, maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but the intelligence didn't back that up. You can't just make wish cast what you think the intelligence says, what you want it to say. That's not what it said. So you see the manipulation of this, and just use your common sense. The 2016 election was a multi-billion-dollar affair.
I know.
The idea that Vladimir Putin, that great connoisseur of America, with these badly worded, badly translated Buff Bernie memes and whatever, a few $1 million, that was so influential that it just completely swung the election is insane. And frankly, I'm personally embarrassed that I ever bought into any part of this, because now I see how so clearly the way that this is just used to gin up terror and fear and obsession, and it's like a new sort of red baiting, and all to serve the interests of the national security state. I remember
it's the same thing in 2016. I was like, I don't know about this WikiLeaks thing. I was like, should I report on this information from WikiLeaks? And now I'm like, it was totally legit. And they're like, oh, the Russians, you're doing exactly what they're bidding. And it's like, the truth is when you see real corruption in front of your very eyes, you should report it. And that is the case, is with the Russians and these Facebook ads and all of this, is that the truth is that there was a seismic economic shift in this country that caused people to realign in our politics. That was the real story, more than anything. James Comey, letters, Russian ads, a few measly $1 million on Facebook ads and all of that. That had nothing to do with the fact that the economy has fundamentally changed. That's it.
Right.
And that people are not happy with it.
Right.
And they voted for their interests in 2016. It's deeply insulting to the millions of people who cast their votes based upon what they want in order to make their lives better, to say that they were manipulated by a James Comey letter or by a Russian.
I mean, look at Nevada result right now with Bernie Sanders, almost getting half the vote. I mean, just a completely dominant performance across all demographic groups, more or less. And what is that, because of some Russian I mean, it's just stupid and insane.
Yeah, tell that to the culinary workers.
But it's because they've never wanted to grapple with the fact, and they can't grapple with the fact of that realignment, because it's an indictment of their own politics. It's an indictment of their own access to power, et cetera. And so they can't grapple with that. So they have to grab onto Russia. Of course, it is zero surprise that the moment that Bernie Sanders becomes the clear frontrunner in this race, suddenly Russiagate emerges.
Welcome, friends.
So predictable.
I've been here for a long time.
Next up on Rising, he's leading the pack in the Democratic race. So what is next for presidential candidate Bernie Sanders?
Sanders campaign senior advisor Chuck Rocha joins us next to talk about the plan for Texas, South Carolina, and beyond.